All right, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at how I approached rendering Isabelle here. Um, so as I mentioned before, your first step is going to, or in previous lessons, the the first thing I do is I always apply a midtone, which is what I do here. Right, we're watching this in faster speed, so I know that you know in your head that some things are gonna be lighter than others, but it's always safe to just like start a midtone across everything. Okay, then I actually find the light source, or I mark it on my paper. Okay, once you start to understand this a little bit better, you don't necessarily need to put that there. However, it helps me just to remember, like, okay, everything has to follow the rules of this one light source, right? If it's closer to the light source, then it's light. If it's further from the light source, it's dark, right? And you can also always just look back at your reference to see um, if you're on the right track. Okay, but in this case, I didn't want to keep bouncing back and forth at my reference unless it was to check my work. Okay, so here we go. After I applied my midtone, I start with my shadows. I start on this side of her head because when I think about shadows, I always start on the furthest side, right? I know that's going to be where it's dark, right? And as I mentioned before, I know that it's this side, like the right side of the ear. However, the head is actually blocking the light from hitting this part of the ear, so it's casting a shadow. That's why it's darker on that side. Okay, same with these like little hair puff things, right? It casts a shadow right here. This is what we were talking about before, right? Where it's further away, so it's a little bit darker. The hairband is black, so I wanted to make sure that that was dark. I added some shadow on the left side here as well. Everything here right now is just shadow, right? Take it in pieces. Don't try to do your highlights and shadows at the same time. So here, this example with the arm, it's very subtle because the light is really bright. But this underside here, right? Because the light is coming from above, the underside of things are going to be darker, right? Not just left and right, but also up and down, right? So if the light was down here in the bottom right corner, then this top part would be in shadow instead. But since it's coming from the top right, right, the top right, everything on the bottom left on this side should be in shadow. Okay, let's keep going. So here as well, this front part of her arm is blocking this inside part of her arm. And also the head is blocking like this part of Isabel's shoulder and her hand. Okay, it's kind of hard to see because the light was so bright there. So I moved it up. If you look down here, okay, her skirt is creating a shadow down here. This leg is, here, let me move this. This leg, right, this part is closer to the light. This part is further from the light, so that's why this is in shadow. And this down here is especially in shadow because it's being blocked by the skirt and this leg. Okay. All right. So now I took out the eraser, right? I want to add some highlights. So I took out the eraser and I start to erase the parts that are highlighted, right? Or the places that are especially close to the light, which is going to be things on the right side, right? And some parts of the middle, right? We want it to kind of transition. It's okay if we don't get the transition down perfectly right now, but I did want to show that to you in my drawing, okay? So let me bring it back a little bit. If you notice, where is it? Okay, sorry, yeah. If you notice here, after I added in those highlights, I actually added in something here called local value. You don't necessarily have to do it, but if you look at the reference, this part of her sweater is darker, so I wanted to accentuate that by making it darker. It still follows the same principles as before. This part is slightly darker than, like, say, this part because it's in shadow, right? The inside of the mouth is it's being very hidden from the light compared to her tooth, which is actually coming forward, right? So that's why back here it's dark and this tooth is still white, okay?